Okay. Mishneh Torah, Perek Yod Daled, Halacha Tet. גג הסמוך לרשות הרבים בתוך 10 טפחים. הואיל ורבים מחטפים עליו, אסור לטלטל בגג. Okay, let me explain the situation. Imagine the old city, the old buildings, residential units, there's streets, there's alleyways. Okay. Let me see how I can explain this. Okay, so let's say, for example, there's a house, one-story house, low house, and the house has a flat roof on top of it. Now, the way this house has an entrance, let's say the entrance is obviously at the bottom of the house, right? And the roof is on the top of the house. But here's the thing, there's another road that somehow is going close to the roof. Because remember, we're dealing here with these old cities where you have roads and alleyways. And so there's a house, there's one roadway on the bottom, which from this bottom roadway, people can enter the house. But then there's another roadway that's coming from another direction out on top. And this roadway, the top one, it adjoins the roof of the house. So people sometimes when they, you remember in the old city, you see always the Arab woman carrying big loads and people carrying loads, right? So that was the way it was in pre-industrial times. So imagine a person is carrying a load and then he wants to rest. Now he's walking on that top road. So he's going to naturally, rest his sack on the roof of that house. That's the way it works out in terms of the spacing. So now, according to halacha, that house is a reshut yachid. It's 4 walls and it has proper dimensions of a reshut yachid. The roof of the house is a reshut yachid. That's any roof of any house. But here it's a type of ma'ita ayin. What is a ma'ita ayin? It looks like a reshut harabim because people are stopping there and resting their sacks on the roof of the house. So it looks like a reshut harabim, right? So we said again, Gaga Samuch L'Shut Harabim, you have the roof. The roof is parallel or somehow it joins a road, which itself is a Reshut Harabim, and that road is, let's say, 16 amot wide. But since people use that roof, the people on that higher road, which is a Reshut Harabim road, use that roof to rest on, so the roof becomes a type of, or it appears to be a Reshut Harabim. It is not, but that's what it appears. And that's why it's Asul Letaltel Bagag. And because of that, the owner of the house cannot carry on Shabbat on the roof of the house. What does he have to do if he wants to carry on the roof? He has to have a ladder leading from the lower floor, an outside ladder, leading, remember we said that there's a lower street and he enters the house, from the lower street. So you have to have a ladder from the lower street up to the roof of the house. And this would be the ladder that the owner of the house uses to get to the roof. By placing the ladder there, it gives it the appearance of what it is, private property. And by giving it the appearance of private property, that automatically takes away the appearance of it being a Reshut Harabim. So again, the whole problem is one of optics. Hachamim didn't want the owner of the house to carry on the roof of the house because optically it would look he's carrying a Reshut Harabim. So how do you solve the problem of optics? With further optics, right? Namely, build that ladder and make it clear that this is private property. Otherwise, who would build a ladder to public property? Okay. עמוד ברשות הרבים, גבוה 10 ברחב 4, הרי זה רשות היחיד. Now, if you have like a pole or a stump in the Reshut Harabim, if that pole or stump has the dimensions of a Reshut Hayachid, namely at least 10 tefachim height, at least 4 by 4 width and length, it attains the status of a Reshut Hayachid, even though it's in Reshut Harabim, but since it has the dimensions of the Reshut Hayachid, it becomes a Reshut, or it is a Reshut Hayachid. נעש בגובהו יתד כלשהו, אפילו אינה גבוהה של ראשה, הואיל וראוי לתלות ביתד ולהשתמש בו, הרי זה ממעטו ונעשה כרמלית. Let me read this halacha again. Na'as begobho yated kol. Let me first describe what took place. And after I describe what took place, then I will explain the law. Okay, so imagine that this is lying in a Reshut Harabim. This is the pole or the stump, right? And imagine that this is 10 tefachim high by and 4 by 4. So it's a Reshut Hayachid. We said that. Okay. Now, suppose this is exactly 10 tefachim. This is the ground. Suppose a person took a pole. Give me a moment, I'm sorry. Okay, suppose a person took some sort of hook and impaled the hook into the wall of this pole. So now you have this. I know it's a little hard to see. Okay. So you have this hook. Now, that's the situation. Okay. Now the law is as follows. People would use this hook to hang their bags, kind of to rest. A person again is walking with a large bag and he needs to rest it. So he would kind of use the hook to hang his bag, right? So what happens is this pole, which is technically a Reshut Hayachid, is transformed from a Reshut Hayachid to, it's not transformed to a Reshut Harabim because it's not really Reshut Harabim. So you can't say Reshut Harabim, but on the other hand, Rabim, the people, the public uses this hook for purposes of resting their bags on. So it drags the status of this pole away from Reshut Harabim, away from Reshut Hayachid, which is what it was, and it drags it towards Reshut Harabim, but it doesn't quite become a Reshut Harabim. So it becomes a Karmelit. Karmelit is in between status, right? And again, it's only because this hook is used to hang things on or to rest things on. So again, I'm reading it one more time. Na'as berobho yatet kolshehu, he impaled in the height of the pole a hook. Afilu ena geboha shel rasha. It doesn't matter, even if the hook was close to the ground, then you would say, well, it's within 3 tefachim of the ground, and therefore it becomes part of the ground. It becomes part of Reshut Harabim, and we don't count this hook, and therefore this pole stays at Reshut Hayachid. It doesn't matter. Since this hook is used by the public to hang things on, then it changes this pole into a karmelit. So this hook, it lessens the status of this pole, which was a Reshut Hayachid, and now it becomes a karmelit. Okay? So from the pole downwards, the status is that of a karmelit. Okay? And you can still have this as a Reshut Hayachid, but the Reshut Hayachid will only be from the pole upwards, right? So let's say the pole is here. My thumb is the pole. So you would measure from the thumb up to the top. And if you have 10 tefachim on the pole, measuring from the thumb upwards, that part is a Reshut Hayachid. Again, the bottom part from the pole downwards is a Karmelit. From the pole upwards, if you have the measurement of a Reshut Hayachid, meaning if you have 10 tefachim or more, it becomes a Reshut Hayachid. But if you don't have the measurement, if you have, let's say, from the pole upwards, let's say you have 9 tefachim, it would be a karmelita. That was a difficult law. ואפילו מלאהו כולו יתדות, הרי זה נתמעט כובהו, שהרי תולין באותן היתדות ומשתמשים בהן. So let's say, look at this pole again in Reshut Hachid. Let's say I filled it up with hooks, with these hooks. So if I put one hook, I understand. The one hook transforms the status of this pole from the hook downwards to karmelit, because the hook is used by the Bnei Reshut Rabim. What about if I filled up the whole thing with hooks? Then you would say, since I filled up the whole thing with hooks, it becomes like a larger wall, meaning in the pole, and I don't like the word pole, or more like a beam of wood. But the point is, the beam now just becomes wider, and therefore it should more so be treated as a Reshut Hachid, right? It's a larger Reshut Hachid because now I filled it up with hooks, right? That's the thinking. The answer is no. It's still a karmelit because those hooks are used by the members of the Reshut Harabim. Okay. As I said, that was a tough, but then even in the case where you filled it up with hooks, then you would look to the maximum height of the highest hook. And then you would measure from the top of the maximum height of the highest hook up to the top of the pole. And again, if you have 10 tefachim there, it would be considered Reshut Hachid. All right. חורי רשות היחיד, הרי הן כרשות היחיד. אבל חורי רשות הרבים אינן כרשות הרבים, אלא הרי הן כפי מידתן. The holes in Reshut Hachid have the status of Reshut Hachid. Imagine in pre-industrial times, people didn't have floors. It was just a dirt floor, right? So a person digs a hole in his house, right? That hole has the status of Reshut Hachid. Doesn't matter how deep the hole is. Or another law, which is actually the more relevant law. There is a Reshut Hachid, there's a house. And now on the outside of the house, you're standing outside the house. And there's walls. The house has walls, obviously. So you're standing outside. Now, in the walls, there are holes from the outside. So let's say I pick up something from the ground and I place it inside one of those holes. I'm outside, and the hole is facing the outside. That hole has the status of Reshut Hachid. So Chorei Reshut Hachid Kirusharein Reshut Hachid. About Chorei Reshut Harabim, but the holes in the Reshut Harabim, you measure them. So if there's a hole inside the Reshut Harabim, for example, if it's 10 tefachim, at least 10 tefachim deep, but it's less than 4 by 4 wide and long, it's a mekom petur. You go according to the measurement. If it's less than 10 tefachim deep, but it's, let's say, 4 by 4 or more wide, it's a karmelit, and so on. כסף, חול בסד רשות הרבים. אם יש בו 4 ל4 וגבוה 10, הרי זה רשות היחיד. So again, you have a hole in רשות הרבים, which is 4 by 4 by 10, at minimum measurements, it's רשות היחיד. אם אין גבוה 10, הרי זה karmelit. If it doesn't have the depth of 10 tefachim, it's a karmelit. ואם אין בו על 4, ואם אין בו 4 על 4, הרי זה מקום פטור. If it doesn't have 4 by 4, it's a מקום פטור. והוא שגבוה שלושה, שכל פחות משלושה, הרי הוא כארץ. But the minimum measurement for the wall of Reshut Harabim, for a hole in Reshut Harabim to be considered separate from Reshut Harabim, the minimum measurement of the hole is at least 3 tefachim deep. If it's not 3 tefachim deep, then it's considered part of the Reshut Harabim. And the final halacha, halacha Yod Aleph, Reshut Hayahid Umkom Patur Mutar Letaltel Bechulam. So if you have a Reshut Hayahid, it can be, I don't know, 1 mile, 10 miles at Reshut Hayahid. For example, you're in a hotel, a resort hotel, and there's walls around the resort, let's say. You can walk any place in the resort you want. It's all Reshut Hayahid because it's owned by a single person. Also, same thing with Mekom Patur. Mekom Patur, we said, is less than 4x4. So this place that's less than 4x4 is, you can carry all you want. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a fence in Reshut Harabim, and then you have another fence. And this fence creates a space which is less than 4 tefachim wide. And let's say it's less than 10 tefachim. It's less than 4 tefachim wide. So you have this space, and you can walk, by going sideways. So that space is a Mekom Patur. And theoretically, it could go on and on and on for a mile or 2 miles. You would be allowed to carry in that space because it's a Mekom Patur, right? Now, of course, since it's a Mekom Patur, the fence can even be high up. It doesn't have to be, it's not a Karmelit, meaning because we're dealing with a Mekom Patur, it doesn't matter how high the fence can be. It can be a very, very high fence, a very, very high fence, a very high wall. So you're walking sideways and you're carrying something in the Mekom Patur. That's allowed. Even if it was several miles or kilometers long. You can carry in the whole thing. אבל רשות הרבים והכרמלית אין מטלטלים בהן אלא ב4 אמות. But the Reshut Harabim and Karmelit, you're only allowed to carry up to the 4 amot limit. ואם העביר או הושיט או זרק חוץ ל4 אמות, if you carried outside the 4 amot square, ברשות הרבים חייב ובכרמלית פטור. הנה רשות הרבים את איסור דאורייתא, בעצם מעביר ד' אמות ברשות הרבים is חייב, and Karmelit is פטור את איסור דרבנן. שאיסור הכרמלית מדבריהם, מפני שהוא דומה לרשות הרבים. The prohibition to carry Karmelit is because it's like a רשות הרבים, it's not a רשות הרבים, it's like a רשות הרבים. שאמת יתחלף ברשות הרבים, חכמים גזרו the איסור of carrying a Karmelit, because you might end up carrying in רשות הרבים. לפיכך, אם לא היה צריך לגוף ההוצאה, כגון שהעביר כוס בכרמלית, כדי שלא יזכו בו רבים, הרי זה מותר. So if it was a מלאכה שאינה צריכה לגופה, right? And plus the carrying is done in a karmelit, so it's איסור דרבנן, plus it's a מלאכה שאינה צריכה לגופה. For example, you're in a karmelit, and there's a sharp, thorny object there that people might step on and get hurt. So you carry the sharp, thorny object in the karmelit because you're worried that people will step on it. So you carry it and you take it away to the side. That is a mutar. That's a lot because it's melacha she'ena saricha legufa. Ani lo sarich et gufa melacha. I don't need the object that I'm carrying. I just want to get rid of it. ואפילו העבירו כמה אמות, וכן כל כעושה בזה.